We are live. Let's see here. This was a short notice, and this is a test run, basically. So if you're watching this at a later date, forgive the goofiness and the impromptu nature. I'm going to see how this is going to work for a podcast and kind of just a live stream venue. I'm going to start having guests on. Next time we do a live stream, most likely, will be October 30th of the year 2020. We're going to have a guest on then, so we will we'll see if we can't get that started. I saw somebody just came in and bounced out, so there is currently nobody watching, but that is all right, because we are just going to keep on rolling. If you are new to the channel, welcome. This is American Arms Channel. We do duck hunting, we do duck guns, we do firearms reviews, kind of anywhere the wind blows me, and probably eventually a little bit of sponsored content here and there going forward. Few things in the works. We've already had a ammunition manufacturer that sponsored the channel through donation of ammunition. So I will continue to sing their laurels until I shoot the last round they gave me, because they were very generous, and I've been very slow this year to get out full review or even just enough detailing and demonstration of their products. So Warwolf Ordnance, if you take a look at this here podcast or live stream, thank you for the donation to the channel. And as always, I'm going to continue to promote your stuff, because there's nobody else in the 10 gauge game like you. So that said, we're just gonna keep on going here. So I guess your sponsor for the evening is going to be Warwolf. Like I said, they were generous enough to give us ammunition at the beginning of this year, and I've been slowly using it, slowly evaluating it, pattern test. You've seen a couple of videos. I have another video that's just a quick one filmed, another two actually, that we'll be posting here in the next week's time, if not sooner, as of well, today being the 22nd of October 2020. So there is that. I do see that there are two folks potentially watching right now. Welcome. If you have any questions, you want a suggestion for discussion or a topic for me to talk through, go ahead and post it in the live chat down below on mobile or on your sidebar or your comment section when you're on laptop. So that said, I guess what we'll do is, while we're waiting for maybe a couple more people to pop in and watch, if anybody got the notification that this live stream was happening, is we're going to talk about some channel updates, and then I guess I'll kind of get into some meat and potatoes of the live stream here, which is just going to be, you know, some general stuff. And if somebody wants to ask a question, we'll go right into it. So channel updates, 10 gauge videos. I've got a live one went up last week about turkey loads, and that did okay. 100 views on that. That's about what I expect. 3,000 plus subscribers and only 100 views in the first week of upload. YouTube really sucks, especially for firearms and hunting related content, I can tell you that. But if you haven't seen that, check that out. So there's that. Again, Warwolf Ordnance videos coming up. I just don't know when I'm going to get out to do them. I'm going through a job change right now. I'm pretty well into it. That's why currently I'm in Nebraska, which is why you're seeing kind of an office space behind me and not my home. I'm actually away right now. I'm in Nebraska until I head on back in just a couple of days because of work-related stuff. But I'm getting some hunts in, and there will be a hunt premiering. There will be a hunt premiering tonight at 9 p.m. 2 on a Nebraska slough. So there is that. Hey, Mason, good to see you, buddy. Good to short notice. In case you didn't know, Mason, this is good time as any today. I'm going to be here Saturday, so I'm going to be here for this banger of a weekend in central Nebraska, and hopefully we'll get a decent hunt video out of it. So yeah, there's that. All right, awkward staccato here because I've not done a live stream before. But anyways, back to 10 gauge videos. Yeah, so we've got a lot of stuff going on. As a side note, I finally have gotten the Browning Gold 10 Light or Gold 10 Field, whatever you want to call it. At the time I bought mine, they were designating the model as the Light. Pre-2020 model, by the way. I finally have that thing up and running, and it is chugging right along. So I didn't want to do a full review on it until the end of this season. And by that, I mean into next March, when I've had a full year with it. And I've also gotten a full late season at goose hunting with it. But the damn thing has had so many problems that since I finally got it fixed, I think I'm going to test it a little bit more. And we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the extremely hideous on that one. So if you've been watching the channel, you probably obviously know that I'm not a big fan of browning, unfortunately. All right, hunting vids. I kind of mentioned it before, hunting vids. So channel is going to have a lot more hunting vids coming up, which means gun content is going to suffer. But it is what it is, guys. I'm one person, and I work a full-time job. And if I didn't work a full-time job, I wouldn't have the money to buy all the toys I buy. So you guys wouldn't have any content to watch. So until this thing starts paying for itself somehow, or I establish my own brand, which is probably years and years in the making, you know what? I'm just going to have to keep rolling with the punches, and I'll put stuff out to you as I can. If you really, 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 really want to see something specific and you have an idea for the channel, I get encouraged by volume or just by the amount that you neurotically bother me or pester me about it. So go ahead and give us an email at AmericanArmsChannel at gmail.com. So again, AmericanArmsChannel at gmail.com. You can find that in most of our video descriptions, as well as if you reach out to the contact page, it goes to my personal email on the channel, but I reply with American Arms Channel. So there's that venue. All projects in general. I'm looking at a note sheet here. I got a little cheat sheet. Unlike Amy Comey Barrett, my cheat sheet does actually have writing on it. So I am not that good. All projects in general. So we've got 10 gauge stuff. We've got duck gun stuff. We've got constant ideas revolving in my head, things that I talk about that never seem to come to fruition. Again, just sort of the way it is until this kind of takes off. This is a hobby for me, but I really enjoy it and I'm passionate about it. So as it gets bigger and bigger, so will the content get better and everything like that. Going from there. So since nobody's posted a question, we got just Mason making a statement there in the live chat that Nebraska's going to be wild here, up in here. I can't speak. It's going to be wild here in Nebraska this weekend with the duck migration, with the Dakotas locking up. There's a topic for us, duck hunting. So, you know, living in Western Virginia, Southwestern Virginia, and in West Virginia, I mean, you've seen the videos. I can have great days. I can have great weekends when it comes to duck hunting, but man, it's not the place for it. But I have a lot of fun. And I try not to give up where the public areas I go are. If you're smart enough, you probably figure it out. But just in general, I don't want to give those up so that they don't get, one, selfishly inundated and not worth hunting for me anymore. And two, just the other local guys that know about those spots, because on public land, there are no secrets. I don't want to ruin it for them, newcomers thinking they're going to get a stellar hunt in. So there is that. I work my butt off. So what you see, if I take a limit or I take a couple birds or we get a place that's really awesome, just pretty and wonderful to go to, it's 99% of the time going to be on public land, but I'm also not going to tell you where it is or usually mention where it is. Might give you a state. Yeah, so there's that. Anyhow, let's see. So yeah, this weekend going to be an incredible migration weekend for late October. Honestly, you know, it's going to be the 24th of October. So honestly, the day to be in central Nebraska is going to be the 25th of October, 2020. And that's for hunting earlier season birds. The Dakotas are locking up with ice and snow. They are going to melt. There's going to be small reverse migrations of local birds, most likely if they get above the 40s for more than a couple days. They have enough large water bodies there that the birds can visit those. And as long as there's not a ton of snow cover, they're going to be in the crops and they're going to be eating like crazy. So the Dakota guys are still going to have good hunts ahead. This isn't going to lock them up for the rest of the season. Nebraska, however, and maybe upper Kansas is going to see a good push of a lot of the small ducks. In this past week, we've seen a lot of our small ducks here in Nebraska leave. So we are going to see them migrate down south farther, and we're going to start seeing bigger ducks. We've already been seeing gadwall. We've already been seeing some widgeon, and widgeon aren't always considered a big duck, but they are bigger. We've seen pintails, plenty of pintails around here in central Nebraska. We see early geese migrating down. The specks have already flown over and gone on down to Kansas and Missouri and Arkansas, on their way down to Oklahoma and their wintering grounds. So that push is already happening. You know, the migration is starting to get into full swing, and it's just going to accelerate through November. Like I said, we're probably going to see some warm-ups in the Dakotas. We haven't seen all the birds push out of Canada yet. If you're watching the migration reports, it's going to be good, and it's going to be in waves. And I don't think we're going to see a lot of back migration besides local birds just flying up and down maybe some counties or a couple states. But the way it is looking this year, the Central Flyway is going to have an excellent time, and I'm going to be back out in less than 30 days to hunt Nebraska, take a vacation and hunt Nebraska on the week of Thanksgiving. So it's going to be a good one. Hopefully I'll get a couple banger hunts in and some awesome footage. But there is that. So duck hunting in general for the Central Flyway looking good. Mississippi Flyway looking okay. Atlantic Flyway, and I will call it the Appalachian River Channel Flutterway because there's not that many birds. Those two, we're probably going to be about the same boat until late December. The normal deal there when it comes to just getting birds down. So we'll see what we can get done in regards to that on the East Coast, but I'm not expecting anything special this year. I'm expecting January to be the bread and butter time. Last year we had good migration show up in the mountains in November with a big cold snap, but then nothing until mid-January when the season was most of the way over. So it is what it is. I live in a terrible place to hunt ducks and be passionate about it, but between this weekend and when I show back up in Nebraska, it's going to be a focus on whitetail and just trying to put some meat in the freezer. So there's that. Let's see. A5 buys. So the video going up tonight, you are going to see, let me reach behind me and pull it out. You're going to see this old girl, 1953 Browning Automatic 5, and it has a cut down barrel with a power pack choke system, the original removable choke system. It came with a long range. I have run this with steel. I know a lot of you are going to cringe, but the power pack is actually fairly safe in the modified and what's called long range, which is more like a improved modified or light full. It's not a true full. Incredibly tight steel patterns, great bismuth patterns. Typically, I have another gun with this on it, but I purchased this. It's actually going to hang out here in Nebraska in case I can't bring a firearm with me. But there is this guy, took 2 ducks with it on Saturday, and that was a lot of fun. Ooh, nice and smooth. I have not cleaned this one out yet. Just wiped it down, and she needs another wipe down actually. But great classic 2 3/4 inch gun. So got this A5. Love the bird's head style pistol grip on that. And that doesn't really do anything for you. You're not going to wrap your fingers around the knob, but it just looks good. And I'm kind of guy that likes to set my trigger finger up, so I'm way back because I have alien hands, and I can easily reach the safety by being set all the way back. Just wonderful piece, of course. And unplanned, but actually did pick this one up because I saw it for a great price at a Cabela's here in Nebraska, and I could not give it up because although it's a little bit worn and honest wear and tear, it is in fantastic condition, and me tearing it apart proved that. It's about 62 years old, about a 1958 Auto 5 Magnum, and fantastic gun, running the factory full 30-inch barrel on it. That's a long one. Shoots high, actually. Shoots a little bit high. I'm going to have to do some videos on this. I will be bringing this one back to Virginia with me. And this is another fantastic, just a little bit shorter length of pull, but I'll probably add a pad or a slip-on, add a longer pad or a slip-on pad just to push me out there. But with a heavy coat, this is fine. Did figure out though on Sunday I was hunting and I shot absolutely atrocious with this. Granted, I bought it on Saturday evening and went out hunting Sunday evening, or Sunday morning, I should say, after confirming it worked and there was nothing wrong with the gun. You know what? It actually shoots high, kind of like my Benelli's. It shoots about a 70-30 pattern when, I mean, the bead's buried on it. And it throws with number 5 lead and number 5 bismuth, a pattern that is honestly not worth shooting at a duck unless it is 30 yards away. And we were shooting at birds in our lap. I mean, the closest shot we were taking was probably 15 yards. And then the longest shot we probably took was on fleeting birds, and they were probably 35 yards. I did crush on my own one gaddy, and that was a lot of fun. We got that on video. Hopefully, I got to check the GoPro still, but going to be posting that as soon as possible. So this guy did a great job, and I really like this one. I like both of them. I love both of them. That's why I bought them. But it was choice between these and getting another like a Benelli Nova or something. So there was that. But fantastic gun. But the point I wanted to get to is, you know, let's talk about hunting with vintage and antique shotguns. You know, what do you need to know to find one? What do you need to know as far as, can I use it? Can I hunt with it? There is a video on the channel. It's a couple of years old now, talking about why you should hunt with an old Auto 5. And funny enough, here's another Auto 5 mag. The previous one was my father's. This one is mine. The reason you should is because they're damn cool. And also these guys and girls deserve to be taken out into the field and hunted with and carried for generations to come, because they are a solid tool. And they are not, it's not the same. When I think of my duck gun, I don't think of having an Auto 5. I think of my Super Black Eagle 3, because I just absolutely love it, and it's my duck gun. I think of my Vinci too, but the SBE3 has just kind of become the gun for me, and everybody has their duck gun. It doesn't have to be anything special, and it doesn't have to be the highest end or anything. It could be the single shot you killed your first wood duck with, and you know, your dad gave you a pocket full of shells and took you out to the marsh, and you ended up dropping one after 20 shots that day. You know, it can be anything, but the reason you should hunt with them is because they deserve to be taken out, and they will build memories for you. And it's just fun. Sometimes it's just challenging to get used to older technology. I mean, the humpback design, while it points naturally, I mean, this one's a little bit short for me, and they usually are, but man, you throw that up and you just feel like you should be wearing, you know, your Woolworth plaid, green plaid, hiding behind some reed grass with a yellow or black lab next to you. And I mean, it feels like you should be running a box of Winchester Super X lead at birds coming by, and you know, over a couple of cork or wood decoys. It just feels like you're traditional, like you know, you're part of grandpa or uncle or dad's history, right? So hunting with a classic gun is absolutely what you should do. But getting into things like what you should look for in an Auto 5. Looks can be deceiving. This gun could be completely in the white from being rubbed down and used heavily for the last 62 years, but that doesn't mean that she's been beaten and abused. This one has a lot of wear. You can see there's a lot of white coming through on the barrel, on the receiver from carry. There's a lot of white on the upper part of the barrel where this thing has been slipped in and out of a gun sock and taken in and out of the safe. And there's dents and dings and nick, but it's got a lot of character. So those things I'm not really worried about, because this thing's going to get more dents and dings and bluing wear and character over its lifetime, which hopefully is for a century to come. The one thing that was critical about this guy, and I am now the idiot that did it to it, but when I took a look at the screws, they were full of mung. The screw slots were full of mung, which, if you don't know what mung is, it's a debris. It's what gunsmiths call the oil, gunk, dust, dirt, grime that just forms on and inside of a gun over decades of use, or less sometimes. But yeah, that's called mung, and it's almost gummy, and that's the petroleum product that's sitting in it that's making it kind of gummy. So fun fact, But yeah, these screw heads were full of mung and absolutely not damaged. If you take a look at those right there, get a good light on it, you can see how pristine these screw heads are, and the one in the back there is actually marred up from me. But I had to clean the mung out of those screw heads. I had a manufacturer screw head because I don't have a A5 kit. I need to order one of those, but I don't, I had to manufacture a screw head that would fit this and take care of everything for me. But got this thing apart, spent 2 hours completely cleaning it up after the hunt on Sunday where I fell in the river with it. But we got that on camera too, so check that out when it posts. But yeah, completely cleaned it out, and actually I can't find any oil. So this sound you're hearing, that very smooth, buttery, extremely slick, well-worn in action, that's no oil. That is completely 100% stripped down. And it is super smooth. It was smooth when there was 62 years of mung inside of it. But I could tell this girl had never been taken apart outside of just having the barrel pulled and the action locked open and cleaned on the inside. So there was a lot of dirt and debris in there. But she cleaned up nicely. So primarily when you're buying an old A5 specifically, you're going to be wanting to look at these screw slots. If they're all marred up, that's an indication that, one, obviously somebody didn't have the right screw head, but two, the person who was doing it probably didn't know what they were doing. So it might be misassembled, it might be a part's missing, it might be broken from somebody screwing with it. Because an A5 is 1900s technology. It is all leaf springs, flat springs, and screws and millwork. It's high quality, fit and finish, just absolutely beautiful, but it is a machine, and you need to watch for, just like any used car, you're going to watch for things that are obviously red flags about the previous owner or the people you're buying it from. Same thing here. Screws are marred up. If you see anything going on with the charging handle or the bolt that doesn't look quite right, there's a pin here that is your firing pin, retaining pin, and also helps retain the locking block on the bolt. If that is marred up, smashed or something, yeah, somebody probably drove that sucker back in with a hard hammer or a hard punch and scraped the crap out of it. So definitely something you want to watch for there. Stock integrity. Stock integrity is a big thing with old duck guns. When you're taking a look at the tang and the pistol grip on doubles, on autos, on pumps, it doesn't matter. An old waterfowl gun, especially, you got to watch for water damage. If water is soaked in the stock and you have cracks from expansion and contraction from moisture, you will see it. And also the finish, especially a clear coat finish like this one, will be pretty nasty looking in certain spots. You'll be able to tell wood damage. For example, here, this grain on this toe, while that doesn't look too bad and it's just a dark grain to begin with, that has gotten some water in it, I can tell. And it has not ruined the toe of this stock, but it was an item I did look at and had to evaluate, thinking myself, well, is this going to be a place that this is going to chip out or fray or mush on me over time? And it very well might. Thankfully, there's a lot of folks who make Auto 5 replacement stocks and keep these old girls alive even when they get busted. So there is that. Again, screws on the grip. You want to watch those slots. Did somebody mess with them? Did somebody get it all banged up? Want to take a look at that. Make sure that you're not buying something with splits. Something that looks like somebody pried into it and got in there and maybe did something that wasn't good for the gun. So there is that. Another thing to look for is oil swelling or oil staining. If it gets too much oil on it from over lubrication of the internal parts or too much, there's guys who, think that, or used to think that you had to oil the stock. They need that nice sheen and stuff, or they get too much oil on the tang and it just seeps down in there where the finish isn't. It's going to go in. That wood is going to pull it right in just like water, but it's not going to exhale it like water. It's going to stay in there. It's going to be oil stained. And what it's going to eventually do is it's going to cause that stock to fatigue and crumble and destroy itself under recoil. I've seen it happen a couple times. I bought a double that I thought was decent, just had dark wood. I figured it was from age. the entire tang, although it was older and used and not entirely obvious that it hadn't been taken care of. It had been overtaken care of. Somebody had poured a ton of oil on this thing to try and rub it down, and it over years soaked into that tang, soaked into that that grip of that stock, and it came apart after probably 3 boxes of shells, and I still haven't fixed it after 3 or 4 years. Just a pain in the butt, but something to watch for. So screws, make sure they're not damaged. Make sure there's nothing on the gun that looks like, hey, this might be a problem. Stocks are incredibly important. Look for water damage. Look for oil soaking. Look for chipping. If somebody's put this on a gun that and it's not properly secured it, no matter what type of firearm, as an example, of course, we're looking at the Auto 5, but if somebody's put it on there and it doesn't look right, it probably isn't right. It's going to get busted up. It's going to fail you. So unless you're looking for a project gun, stay away from it no matter how tempting the price. Again, unless you're looking for a project gun. So A5 specifically, a lot of wording, a lot of talking for this area of the gun, you know, this little small section, but it is critical when you're evaluating a gun you want to buy, an Auto 5, that you take a look at that and make sure somebody hasn't gone in there and messed something up or just improper care. A lot of it comes down to negligence or improper care. Take care of your shit and it'll take care of you. Pretty old adage, holds true all the time. The next thing to take a look at, and we're going to look at both of these guns here, is going to be the internal friction rings. So I've got this set up for 2 3/4 inch magnums. And if we look at the orientation of the friction rings, we can see that is for our 2 3/4 inch magnums. And we've got the rings and the friction piece stacked on the bottom to maintain spacing. You don't have to do that, but I recommend it so you don't lose them and you keep the same spacing. So pretty heavy duty coil there, but you're going to be looking for a couple things. When I took this gun apart, the friction rings were not in the proper orientation. They had all of them stacked for a 3-inch gun, but they were in the wrong stack. They had two black rings in the bottom, a friction piece, a friction ring with the cone forcing down on top of that bottom friction piece, and then friction ring, and then the barrel. So they had all their parts and pieces, but it's kind of hairy. Like somebody kind of thought they knew what they're doing, but they didn't check. I'm assuming it was somebody at Cabela's that maybe popped the gun apart and the pieces went everywhere. I looked at it and reset it. I was like, okay, there's an item. I need to make sure this gun hasn't been overdriven with 3-inch shells. So crack it open, looking at it, nothing. It was fine. Somebody just had messed up. But that is something to look at. The first thing I do when I pick up an A5, look at the screws, look at the stock, look at the friction setup. Next, of course, as all guns, pull your barrel. Look at what the choke is marked. Look at the muzzle. You can kind of tell, especially with an old Auto 5, most of them being full. When you look at this, you can kind of tell, if you've seen enough of them, by eye, what is a full and what is not. If it's marked with 1 star and it's meant to be a full, if it's not looking like a full, just assume it's been modified by a gunsmith, and then you're just looking into the bore to see if it was swaged out or bored out or what it would be, just so you know what you're getting into. The nice thing about the Auto 5 mags is that you can buy later production in vector choked, removable choked, and vector and removable chokes for the gun. And even if it's like this, a 1958 Belgium. So Johnny, you just asked a question there. Is it a Belgian-made one? Yes, this is an Auto 5 mag made in Belgium, 1958. So also has the early style of the action spring, where it's all one round piece, just like the short chambered version, the 2 3/4 inch version, the original, where later on they went to a dual nested. And a lot of times if you buy the upgrade or the replacement kits for the spring, the recoil system, it'll be a dual nested kit. My dad's 1964 is a dual nested spring system. This one, being a 58, is a single spring and looks like it has its original friction pieces, which will last a very long time if you set the gun up right. So once again, to review, check your stock, check your screws, go to your friction pieces not set up right, start checking the action, making sure there isn't something broke, cracked, looks wrong with the gun. So there's that. And let's pop this guy right back together real quick. You know, there's a lot of variants of the Auto 5. Just talking about the standard. With the Magnum, there's not quite as many, but you do get into the not from the Belgium, but the Japanese-made Auto 5. So the Japanese-made ones are not as desirable. They won't command quite as high a price point, and they also are not going to be something that is quite as refined in finish as the Belgians. But a lot of them are really good shotguns. I mean, it's the same gun. They're parts interchangeable with the original Belgium guns. So if you're taking a look at a Japanese one, you should be getting it for a lower price point, to be honest. But yeah, so there's that. With the mag, you've got 2 friction pieces and 3 rings. So let's take a look at the shorter guy. So again, here's our 1953 with our post-war push-button safety. Clear. Now this one also does not have the speed load system. If you're wondering why you can't push your lifter up to load the magazine, you have to push what some people call the slammer button, other people call the bolt release. I call it the bolt release. So you do have to push that to raise it up when compared to the Magnum and later versions with the speed load system, where it's simply a 2-piece latch system, and if you lock it open and feed a round in, it's automatically going to go home the second you let go of that shell. So cool little system there, but those are retrofittable. If you buy kit and put in the later trigger group frame and spring in this gun, you can set it up for the 2-piece speed loading system. But that's an aside. We're going to take a look at the friction pieces now. So we're going to pull this guy. This one is also set up for 2 3/4-inch Magnums, as they pretty much should be, unless you're going to dove shoot. And I recommend you always set them up for that, unless you're going to run light buckshot or you're going to use dove loads, because otherwise you'll overdrive the system and hurt it. So once again, we're looking here. We've got a spring. There is a collar, and there is the barrel. So there's a friction piece that goes around the, or excuse me, there's a friction piece that goes underneath your friction collar. Maybe they call it something else, but I just refer to it as the collar. And in this situation, I've got it set up for what I call light Magnum, so like 1.25 ounce to 1.5 ounce loads that are slow. And we don't have our friction piece set up down here. And that's also because we were running steel loads, and steel loads don't like to agree with Auto 5s unless they are set up for the medium to lighter loads. So I put that friction piece back, and now we've got both conical pieces, the other one being the barrel ring, set up so that as this drives back, it squeezes that friction piece and breaks the barrel as it travels into the receiver. If you have it set up wrong and you overdrive it, you are going to know on the first shot. These should be soft shooters. They are tuned and set up and engineered to run pretty soft. You should not feel like you're getting double punched where there's recoil and the barrel hitting the back of the receiver is punching you twice. It should, I mean, I'm barely pushing it, and this is 1 spring tension and 2 friction pieces. This is hard. That shell is generating just enough energy when set up correctly to bring this barrel all the way back and then send it all the way back forward. If it's slamming into the rear of the receiver, you're overdriving the gun. You're going to break something eventually, and it's going to damage the stock most likely. So not a good idea. Always make sure you get it set up correctly. Outside of that, it's standard stuff compared to every modern gun and old gun. You're just looking at magazine tube. You're looking at, hey, can I dry fire this? And does it go click? Good. It does. Does it lock back? Does it go home? Does it sound right? Etc. Does everything look good? Just like any gun or used car, you want to make sure you check everything over before you purchase. And even if you're looking for a parts gun or a project gun, very important that that you still identify what's wrong with it, and it can help you at the negotiating table too. You know, this one, I'll tell you right now, this one cost me $325. Is it the going rate? That's a little bit low, but once again, we've got a 1953 Belgium with a plain barrel, a plain butt stock. It does have the bird's head, the rounded bird's head pistol grip, is a post-war safety, but it does not have speed feed. plain barrel, no vent rib, and it's been cut down from whatever its original length was to about 24, 25 inches here and given the shark fin style power pack. So it's not perfectly original. It's not in perfect shape. So $325 is a fair price. I would say a steal would have been probably $250, but I needed this for the weekend, so I just bought this one for what I thought was a cheap price to me. And there you go. Now, something like the Auto 5 Mag, region, condition, and just general wear and tear on it, and whether or not it's a Belgium or not, is going to drive the price. I'm going to tell you that I paid a little bit. I paid $7.50 for this. That is not a stellar price, but it is not a bad price. Most times when you're looking at an Auto 5 Mag, most gun shops, especially on the East Coast, are going to be charging right around $1,000. I've seen guns in this same condition at gun shows being sold for, not asking price, sold for $950 to $1,250 in similar to the same condition as this, solely because it is a Magnum and it is Belgium. So, you know, a Belgian, I should say. So Magnum and a Belgian equals moolah. So there is that. Auto 5's a lot of fun. Really, just, I mean, talk about the quintessential classic duck gun. There is no greater king. The Auto 5 was the gun for a very long time and is still the classic semi-automatic, serious waterfowler's duck gun. Nowadays, that has been replaced by things like the Super Black Eagle series. Guys think about really high-end guns that the premier creme de la creme of outfitters and the most serious waterfowl guys buy. They're thinking about the high-end Berettas, the A400 series. They're thinking about the Benelli Super Black Eagle series or the M2 series, you know, the Super 90 base series. They're thinking about the Super X's now, the Winchester Super X's. They're at a point where they're just fantastic. So modern duck gun, yeah, this guy does not hold a candle to a modern duck gun as far as simplicity, ease of care, corrosion resistance, you know, recoil mitigation, all that. It's a heavy guy too. It's not a light gun. Modern guns run circles around Auto 5s, but the thing is, some of the modern guns, if you take care of them, the good ones will last just as long as an Auto 5. The okay ones, just like the okay guns of yesterday, they're only going to make it so far. So it's a testament to how awesome these things are. If we keep replacing springs, taking care of friction pieces and stuff, and maintaining them as needed, maybe a firing pin here or there and a fresh whatever spring every once in a while, these guns will be running for the next 2 centuries. I mean, it just is what it is, guys. So I really suggest you get an Auto 5 before demand drives the price up. They keep climbing every year, and they still command the prices that they do when you're talking about unique examples because of collectors, or you're talking about just a good piece to duck hunt with, which is what this guy is. That's what the other one is. So that is about all I can say on the Auto 5s before I'm just going in circles. Next thing I've got on my list, I see there's 4 of you on right now. Next thing I've got is going to be talking about some bismuth loads, specifically Kent versus Boss. But if you guys have anything, oh, here we go. So Johnny, are the new A5 Wicked Wings better than the Super Black Eagle 3 in your opinion? So I'm going to caveat my opinion with stating this, Johnny. I do not own, I have not tested and evaluated the A5. I have handled them in store. I have watched guys shoot them. I have talked to owners. I've read a lot of post-hunt reports. I've read a lot of long-term reviews of the A5 now, since it has been out for, we're getting close to, I think, 6 or 7 years. The A5, the new A5 has been out. And there's been a lot of good and a lot of bad with it. Unfortunately, the issues that I experienced with Browning seem to be also in the production line of the A5. Now, the A5 is Belgian in Portuguese made, if I remember correctly, much like the Maxus is. Specifically, the Wicked Wings version that you're asking about. The Wicked Wings is a very nice touch. You've got the Cerakote finish. You've got the band choke tubes. Those are a flashy item. Most guys actually have found that they pattern for shit and are not. I mean, it's cool to look at, but unless you're running just steel, big shot steel from Winchester, they didn't seem like they did their homework on making them pattern any better than the standard choke that would come with the standard A5. So that is what it is. But for what I have seen, the negatives, because everybody wants to know what could I possibly be walking into with a gun. You know, people ask about the high POA or POI on the SBE3. With the A5 and the A5 Wicked Wings, it's reliability. It really comes down to, there are some fit and finish issues here and there that I've seen personally with guns in store, as well as guys that have been lamenting issues with their gun. But I've also seen, you know, reports of just the guns not working. And I don't necessarily think that it is something caused by a slight manufacturer problem. I don't think it's caused by anything that's really a fit and finish issue. I think it's genuinely they have not worked the kinks out of the design. And as more ammunition is used in the gun, as different variables are entered besides the standard tests that Browning, whatever test Browning does, their post-production samples, I think, are the problem. I think they need to go back in and they need to re-engineer something. I am suspicious that they use actually a smaller 4-lug rotating head on their inertia driven. They call it kinetic drive, you know, but it's inertia. It's inertia. There's 4 locking lugs on that gun, and when it goes into battery, that just like an AR has 7 locking lugs, the 4, if they don't have a way to push dirt out, you're going to get out of battery Benelli clicks. I also suspect that they are having cycling issues because there's some sort of tolerance that's not right in their barrel extension, between the barrel extension and their bolt head. So that's the bad of it. It's really cycling issues. It's not, I mean, some of the patterns guys have been throwing with factory chokes, they've been okay, but some of the aftermarket, they've been putting Jebs, they've been putting pattern masters, every type of shot type guys have been throwing through these A5s for years now. And those new A5s have been patterning great. That DS system, I like the choke tube sound, the DS, the Invector DS. It's a super long parallel section, which should, if properly engineered, especially with an extended choke tube, give you an amazingly large opportunity to really gradually condense that shot and hold together a better pattern as it goes down range. So with proper engineering, that choke tube system is amazing. It's really the bad about the A5 that I have read, that I have seen, that I have talked to guys about, and I have evaluated is you got your normal little things that can happen with the guns that can happen to any manufacturer, but it's mostly the reliability deal. The Wicked Wing seems to have fixed a lot of that because they're putting more attention to detail into that production line because it's commanding the same price point, the same premium as their biggest competition, which is the Super Black Eagle. The SBE3 is the biggest competition. It is the big dog in the room. That and the A4, the A400 Extreme. You know, and you can get a good A400. You don't get the top of the line one, but you get the A400 Extreme with a 3.5-inch chamber and the kickoff for like $14.50 street price. So, you know, the Wicked Wings is coming in at $16.50, $17.50, $18.50. It's hard for Browning to sell that when it's not anything more than Cerakote and fresh choke tubes in a different stock system at its base, but they seem to be doing something to make it work better. So, you know, Johnny, to answer your question about that, what do I think about the A5? You know, is it better than the Super Black Eagle 3? No, I don't think it is. But if it's the gun that fits you and you have confidence in the product from what you have seen and read, and it's just the best thing since sliced bread for you, I want you to buy that duck gun. I want you to enjoy that because that's what this is about. It's about enjoying it. These are not necessarily life or death situations that we're looking at our duck gun to work in, right? We want them dead ass reliable. But, you know, and I'm giving the bad because I'm an informative channel. I really want you guys to know what my evaluation is. If I get an A5 in my hands or any other Browning product for whatever reason, and I mean new Browning product, not like these old A5s I've just demonstrated and talked about here, but if I get a new one in, I'm absolutely going to come in with an open mind. I'm not going to expect Browning to take care of me if I buy one myself, and I'm absolutely not going to, as I've stated before. But if somehow I have one sent to me for testing evaluation or whatever it may be through whatever venue, or a friend offers one up for a couple months for testing and evaluation, I'm going to come into it. I'm going to show you guys exactly what happens, just like I did with the Gold 10. So, but yeah, Johnny, not as good as the SBE3 in my evaluation, but definitely something to take a look at if that's really, really the gun you have your heart set on. So there is that. Mason, so A5, I'm pretty sure run the same bolt intervals the SX4. Might be wrong, pretty sure. Mason, you're thinking of the Browning Silver. So the Silver is almost identical to the SX4 because it was released just a little bit before the SX4 was. If you look at the Silver models, they are kind of a hybrid offshoot of the original SX2 and the Gold. So the Gold and the SX2 and the 12 gauge at least were the first Super X designs of the revamp from when Browning brought back Winchester Super X design. The operating principles are the same. They went through a lot of stuff to make it a better gun and one of the best duck guns they could. The SX3 is pretty much the same par and the same gun as a Maxus in a lot of ways. And then the SX4 and the Silver are very, very similar. But the new A5 and the Silver show a lot of similarity as far as receiver cut and handling and pointability. When it comes to the A5, it's kinetic driven, so it is much like a Benelli. It's going to have an internal inertial spring because it's an inertia gun, and the bolt compresses. The bolt body compresses in the receiver under recoil, and then compress that spring and springs it open. So your Stogers, your Frankies, your A5 by Browning, your Benellis, the list goes on of inertia guns, but they all operate under that Civlani principle of operation, which came out in the 50s or 60s. The first inertia guns were produced. So there is that. It seems I've heard more bad on the A5 versus the SBE3, Johnny. Yeah, so not to have gone on a big diatribe there about how shitty I think Browning products are, but when it comes to the A5 specifically, you see a lot of complaints versus the SBE3 when it comes to reliability. And the SBE3 is all over the board with it doesn't hit where I aim, da, 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 da. They've got a problem, and that's a topic for a different day. I've covered that multiple times. My opinion has changed multiple times on it as I've used my gun and evaluated it. But to me, they've got a functional engineering issue with the A5, whereas the SBE3, the damn thing works like every other Eagle. It just freaking works. In fact, it's probably got a higher reliability rate than the first or second series SBEs. That mine, I put heavier springs in it, and the damn thing just won't stop running. Bad ammunition is what chokes it. I put shit tier, low bottom of the barrel target loads through it. I've had dead primers in it, a couple dead primers. Those just happen. That's not from the gun, because that's why I put for the extra reliability, I put the extra tension spring in. And I've also had shells that just didn't cycle, and it was the shell. It was a blooper load. So I've had ammunition fail in the gun. The gun's never failed the ammunition if I put premium shit in it. So there is that. I had Boss ammo choke the gun once. I had some 3-inch shells that I still have a batch of that in cold weather, the Cheddite hulls split, and it split somehow I managed to have it split in the same location twice. It split on the outside edge. So as it ejected, it was forcing itself into the side of the front of the receiver / chamber wall, and somehow it crushed enough that when it wanted to eject, it barely kicked itself, and then tried to double feed with that partially ejected hull on top. Evaluated the hulls. It was a hull problem. That stuff happens. What can you do about it? But the gun's awesome. Versus the A5 with the same operating principles, I don't know what the solution is. They need to look at it. I think, honestly, they need to go to a 2-lugs bolt system instead of a 4. I think that's part of their problem. So there is that. Now talk about those guns versus something like an SX4, like Mason. You know, we were just hunting on the river. He's got an SX4, had it for a year, loves the thing. Not to speak for you, Mason, but you know, he's been using that. My wife shoots the SX4, a lot cheaper gun, $1,000 less. Freaking awesome. Once again, a gas gun. You got to decide what you want. So what's the lowest ounce in dram that will run an SBE3? In my experience with the factory springs, the lowest dram that runs in the SBE3 is going to be about a 2.25 dram, 2.5 dram. I have ran 3 dram power level 7/8 ounce hand loads through my SBE3, and it has cycled it fine. I have ran 1 ounce 1100 foot per second 2.5 dram target loads through it with the extra power Wolf springs, and it has not choked. It won't cycle if I hold it lightly at the hip, but in the shoulder, not thinking about it, just shooting, it's cycling those just fine. Some other guys have had varying mileage. I really think it depends upon how worn in your Benelli is. Honestly, with fresh action springs and doing your normal evaluation for maintenance, the Benellis, especially the SBE3 and the Ethos series, seem to want to run the lighter loads a lot more readily than the older inertia designs. And to be honest, guys, I mean, when's the last time you saw commonly on your Walmart or local sporting goods shelf like a cheap pack, like a cheap flat of like $55 of something that was less than an ounce at 1100 feet per second? I don't see it. I have to buy specialty stuff. Sometimes there's that low recoil stuff. It's like it's called something like 72 grams or something for the Winchester load. If it's like a practice low recoil subsonic load, that will not cycle because that's less. It's like 3/4 of an ounce, and it's only going 975 feet per second. It's just not going to cycle anything. The only gun I've ever had it cycle out of was a Remington Model 1148 Sportsman with the friction ring just left alone. And I also cycled out of A5 with no friction pieces, just pulled, turned around, put on, cycled it, super gentle. A lot of fun though. But once again, those are special examples. So let's see here. What's popping up? Avid waterfowler. SBE3 may be reliable, but if it doesn't shoot straight, I fail to see how it's even worth consideration. Mine went back to factory 2 times. Yeah, Avid. So yeah, we discussed that in the comments on one of the videos. You know, that really sucks. I hate that for you. I can't. I'm glad you're reporting on that. That's a great thing to consider. I have not had that experience. Now I have had the high POI issue, and a lot of people have with the first production year. Later models from spring 2018 forward seem to have most of that issue corrected. And I don't know why they randomly had left shooting guns. It was a theme of the guns guys were returning, but there's a lot of variable there that unless you've got a report that the guy actually locked it in like a lead sled, you know, sat down a lead sled, shot, and here's my target at 30 yards and stuff. It's kind of hard to substantiate left, right, up, down a little bit less, but you can tell when a gun's shooting 90-10, that's frickin', you can tell when that's happening. But you know, you're sending them back. What is Benelli doing? They're doing what I did on my how to adjust the point of impact video. They're messing with the ring. If it's really bad, they're going to put a bead on it. From what I've seen, Strix Outdoors has had that happen. They messed with the ring. He thought they were talking about something in the receiver. No, it's the barrel stop ring, and they put a little bit taller bead on it, and it shoots perfect for him now. And somehow they fixed the left right. Maybe that's involved with the barrel stop ring too. I don't know. I just can demonstrate to you what Michael Payne, who commented on one of my videos talking about that fix, what he did. He talked about it, worked for him. I made that fix, worked for me. Other guys are starting to make that fix, commenting on the channel, commenting on a couple Facebook posts, and they're getting better results. But you know, that is what it is. I wish that your gun hadn't been shit for you. Really, I really hate hearing any waterfowl gun doesn't work, because honestly, at the bottom of my heart, I want everybody to get out there and have their piece, and it's cool to have that kind of diversity of duck guns and that fellowship in the blind, and everybody shoots something different. If you're myopic about I shoot this and that's what everybody should shoot, dude, get out of the blind. You need to reevaluate why you're here. But yeah, so that sucks, Avid. Sorry to hear about it, but you know, let's see. Well, I'm sorry, I'm missing your comment in here, and I'm trying to, let's see, they never got it right. Don't think they want to. Admit there is a problem. Benelli spent a lot of time blaming me, the ammo, or the choke. Been very good to me over the last 10 years, regardless of model. Shot left 12 to 15 inches, high 100 0. Was made in early 2019. Well, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, Avid. That fucking sucks. It really does. I am no stranger to a company not taking care of me as a customer. And like, I've never dealt with Benelli. I've only emailed their service department once or twice for a question to be answered. That sucks. Yeah, I really, you know, scream it from the rafters and the rooftops that they treated you poorly. I don't care. I talk shit about Browning because they treated me like shit. There is a problem, and that's what I'm saying to you. There is a problem. Is it dead ass reliable? Does the freaking thing work? Yeah. Somehow they effed up how they tune it in the factory, and somehow they effed up a little bit of engineering with that barrel. I think honestly what they need to do, if we want to talk about my opinion about what Benelli needs to do to make sure the SBA3 doesn't linger with this bullshit problem, is that they need to go back and look at their rib height. They need to look at how they're interfacing with their receiver, with their barrel stop, with their action spring, the whole thing. They just need to redo it. I think primarily it's going to be a barrel ring and a vent rib issue. I think that you're seeing the reason the POI is being able to be adjusted by that barrel stop ring on both the SBE2 and the SBE3. I don't know about the original SBE, but the 2 and the 3 is that is helping to regulate the tension from the barrel nut, and that tension on that. It's kind of hard for me to describe, but you know, without showing you guys on a whiteboard or something. But you know, you've got your barrel ring, and then you've got your barrel stop ring. The barrel nut going on that's going to flex that barrel ring if it's not stopped by that barrel stop ring. So the less you have that, the more you have that backed off, the more that's able to flex, and that's why it's pulling that point of impact down. Because honestly, when you bore sight these, the center axis of the bore is intersecting the line of the vent rib on the SBE3 at 15 or 16 yards. I think it's 16. And that will provide you with a modified choke on average, should provide you with something like a 70-30 pattern at 30 and 40 yards. Because as you're going out, of course, the shot's losing a little bit of velocity, but this pattern is also spreading. So on average, all things being equal, yada, 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 it should be a 60-40, 70-30. I think they genuinely designed the gun to float birds more. I think they were intending for a 70-30 shooting gun. I think that's what, when you really get down to a lot of waterfowl loads, a properly set up SBE3 is going to shoot from the factory. But if it's messed up and it's shooting too high, well, you know, I don't know what to say other than they screwed up. So yeah, you want me to admit that they screwed up? I'm not a rep from Benelli. I don't care. They fucked up. I love the gun. I love my gun. I accepted that it shot high. I didn't want to personally send it back because I thought I could deal with it. I kind of got sick of it. I was wondering about it. Hey, can I actually do this? Is there something I can do for guys? And that's why I made that video, and that's why I talk about it as an advocate for what I like. You know, in that sense, the thing is dead ass reliable. It's an awesome handling gun. The ergonomics are fantastic. It's light. It's speedy. It's wonderful. I love it. It's my duck gun. But yeah, it's got a freaking problem. They need to figure their shit out, and I think it comes down to the barrel. I think they honestly need to go with just a new barrel set, and maybe just freaking, if you can't regulate how your guys are assembling in the factory to work with that point of impact, like you've got a quality control issue there that somehow your variance is too much if you're sending stuff out that'll shoot anywhere from 60-40 to 80-20. That's just way too much of a variance. So let's say they get that nailed down and the thing still shoots 70-30 and people are still complaining. God damn it, just re-engineer the freaking vent rib and send out, do like the Super Black Eagle 3.5 or something, or 4. Maybe that's the update to the 4 in a couple years. I don't know. But yeah, they need to figure their shit out with it. So let's see who's else commenting here. Johnny, I have Benelli Super Sport Performance Shop clays and love it. Shoots high also, but it's a sporting clay gun, high rib gun. Yeah, that sounds about right. I've shot the Super Sport multiple times, and man, what a sweet gun. Definitely a Super 90 base gun. Definitely kind of got that Eagle flavor. They shoot high. Both models I shot, definitely 70-30 guns. I didn't put them on a pattern board, but I could tell. I just floated the bead underneath, right on the bottom of the clays, just as a reference point. Was breaking clays, but not powdering them. Thought to myself, I think I'm shooting over. Start holding just a touch more underneath the clay. I absolutely smash, just dusting them. And so that one definitely shot something like 70-30. But once again, sporting clays gun, it's all about what you guys are looking for. If you don't want a high shooting gun, if you don't want an aggressively ribbed gun, grab a Beretta, grab a Browning if that's your thing. Look for that flat rib. Stogers shoot pretty flat. The highest I've ever had a Stoger shoot is 60-40. My M2000, I actually have to look over the gun just a touch to instead of being aligned with the rib, because I had put a replacement bead on it and it's too tall, and it actually shoots something like 40-60. But that one always shot dead nuts, just about. So Stogers are good. The Frankies are generally good. Those can shoot 60-40, 55-45 from what I have seen. So yeah, I like 60-40 personally. I think it's a really great pattern split and tuning for a gun. But, you know, everybody has their own thing. Like I said a little bit earlier, you know, do what you like best. It's really about what you want, because it's your gun. You got to live with it. You got to hunt with it. And, you know, make the decision you think is best. I really just kind of go over all the little nuances and minutia here about duck guns. Let's see. 60-40 is perfect for foul. I wish I was straight shooting gun and would have kept it. The way the gas guns mitigate recoil. I do like, yeah, gas guns are it's a different recoil impulse for sure. They can be sharp, but it doesn't feel like they shove you as hard. And then the opposite end of that, the recoil impulse on a inertia gun is softer. It's not, you don't feel that action flying open as hard, but you definitely, it feels like shooting a pump in a lot of ways. You just feel all of the cartridge going off. So with a Super Black Eagle 3 and some other stock designs like that, or like a really nice Kickies pad, that becomes a lot less noticeable, especially on a hunt when you're actually shooting at birds. But I would concur, Avid, that 60-40 is about perfect for foul. That's what my personal preference is. And I do like the way a gas gun, I like all guns. That's my problem. Have I tried any magazine extensions on your SBE3? Yes, I have. If you go to my videos and you either search on the channel or you just keep scrolling down on the page, you will find two videos on the Nordic Components magazine tube extension. I bought it for the Benelli Vinci, and then I bought the barrel nut for the Super Black Eagle series and put it on Super Black Eagle for snow geese in 2017. And I've also put it on for fun here and there. Worked great. I had a couple of issues in the Vinci that aren't showing up in the Super Black Eagle 3. I can make a video about why one had trouble and the other didn't sometime. I pretty much had it figured out, but I'll do that sometime. I had an issue with a couple of rounds of ammunition. It choked in the one video with 2 3/4, but when running 3 1/2s, I was just using some cheaper 3 1/2-inch fodder for steel, that was steel for snow geese that year. I really was enjoying that extension tube. I picked the +6, I think, which came in with a 28-inch barrel, about an inch underneath the muzzle, maybe a little bit less, 3/4 of an inch. I thought it looked great. It swung great. I didn't have this big, huge tube hanging out past the barrel. So I really liked it. I like the Nordic Components extension tube. Briley makes a really good one. The Sure Cycle tubes by Midwest Gun Works, which Sure Cycle and Midwest are the same company. They have an excellent tube as well. And Carlson does offer tubes for the Eagle series, and they're probably the most cost-effective one. Never tried one, can't comment on it. They look like they're halfway decent. And they do give you a plug that is actually, will take a shell of capacity away from you, but keeps that spring in a good stack and doesn't bind on itself. So smart thinking there, even though it's the cheapest option at usually $50 to $100. Really recommend the SX4 to anyone. Great gun. Never had a problem with it. Yeah, Mason. Kelsey and I have never had a problem with her. She's had one hiccup, but so is the Super Black Eagle 3. That's mine. And hers was on, it was a failure to go into battery while on the clays range. And when I popped the action open, once again, it was a shitty shell. It was just an out of spec shell and somehow wanted to not go into battery. And that gun that we have, our SX4, I should say my wife's SX4, 3 1/2 inch, 26-inch barrel, got a Pattern Master Code Black Goose in it. Sharp looking gun, black model. Good price point for those two. Really, really good value on those. Dead ass reliable. My buddy Matt liked it so much he bought the Waterfowl Edition, which is just the like gold brown coyote tan Cerakote with the camo stock. You got like the Sitka or the Optifade Marsh or whatever it is. His is really sharp looking. He bought the 28-inch barrel version, 3.5-inch chamber, and that thing, just like my wife's, just eats absolutely everything you put in it. If the shell is halfway decent or good quality, it's going to shoot in that gun. So great value there. I hear a lot about the Terra choke tube for the Browning 10 gauges. Have you ever tried these? I have not tried those. I see the same. I've gone with Carlson because I'm a cheap bastard, and paying $35 to $50 a choke tube that works is pretty cool. The Terra chokes run about 115 to 120, if I remember correctly. I actually was going to pull the trigger on one of those right when I got my gold, and I went to their website and they were out of stock. And I was like, well, damn it. And, you know, then Optics Planet had a turkey choke in stock for like $40 shipped. And I was like, oh, you know, squirrel distraction. And I bought that and been going with the Carlsons. So Briley and Terror, the Wad Wizards, the Wad Wizard, the Terror is the brand that makes the Terror choke tube. And the Terror 720 is supposed to be like the bee's knees of 10 gauge stuff, of Invector and Remington pattern choke tubes. I don't know. I don't have one yet. I'll probably invest in one at some point and test it out for you guys. For now, the improved modified Carlson and the full factory with the Boss shells is fantastic. I need to post a pattern of steel out of that improved modified Carlson because it is incredible. It is incredible. It's like an extra full lead choke with that steel. So yeah, I don't know, Avid. I'm going to try and get one at some point and try it out for you guys and put some patterns up. If the Browning decides to keep running and I don't decide to sell it for a different 10 gauge, yeah, it's going to be the test bed no matter what for quite a while. So there is that. Wow, we've been going on it for a minute here about all sorts of things. So unless anybody's got any other duck gun questions or comments that they want to have a dialogue with, I was going to move on to the next topic here I kind of wanted to cover tonight. And that would be a little bit of a bismuth comparison, just thinking about what I've gotten done with Boss in the past season. And versus some Kent bismuth that I bought. Let's see, Johnny, you have something. I'm trying to decide between M2 3-gun performance shop and SB3 best, black synthetic, and adding mag extension. Any option on either for just another fun gun? Well, that is a good. That's a pretty tough choice. I really think that one of your biggest considerations is going to be how long you want the gun to be. The M2 3-gun performance shop and just regular 3-gun model or M2 tactical is a 24-inch barrel version. Now the 3-gun has the vent rib and the tactical is going to have rifle sights or ghost ring sights, one of the two if I remember correctly. But the 3-gun is going to be your premier one. It's got that little tiny stubby +1 extension tube on it, and that's a pretty damn good gun. Really nimble and fast. I've handled one in a shop before. Was really impressed by it. I like the M2. I like the M2 a lot. The SB3, the shortest they're making that barrel right now is the 26-inch, and running the best, that would be a great crossover gun. You know, throughout season you've got it as your duck gun, but come competition time or springtime or range time, you throw that extension tube on it, and hey, you know, now I've got an 8 or a 10 or a 9 shot, whatever it may be, depending upon the load you're using, you know, gun to run and really, you know, get stuff done with it. And you got the 3.5-inch chamber, which if you want it, need it just for fun, etc., that's cool. So kind of a big contrast between the two.
If you're looking for a game gun, though, a gamer gun, if you're looking for something that may also be a perfect complement to your arsenal for home defense, I would more heavily consider the M2 3-gun model in putting a Nordic or a Carlson or a Briley or whatever choke tube, or not, excuse me, choke tube, but whatever magazine extension tube you prefer on it. It just seems like a much handier. You don't think about 2 or 3 or 4 inches of barrel length making that much of a difference, but you also got to consider the magazine tube length and all that, and that little bit of weight and that little bit of shortness actually makes it easier to, if you're going to use it for a 3-gun shotgun, it's going to make it easier to get around barricades and shoot. It's going to make it in it's going to make it in a home defense scenario, make it much easier for you to get under your armpit, get over your shoulder, whatever you may do, whatever your practice is for your home defense training, whether it's self-training or you go to a class. The M2 would be an awesome gun. Another awesome gun is going to be the 1301, the Beretta. I have not shot one of those yet. I have not used one. I've handled them. I've not used one yet, but there is enough reports that thing is the freaking bee's knees as far as a shorter shotgun goes. It's basically a 3-inch Model A400, guys. So, Avid, you probably like that. You like your Beretta. That's a great consideration too, and in the same price range of those other 2 Benellis you're talking about. So I think really you just need to decide, how long do I want it, and what do I want to do with it if I'm not playing on the range or competing with it. I think that will answer your question there, Johnny. Let's see. What are you saying? Small rifle sight with optic front. Yeah. So that would, if you're going to do that, then if you're going with that on an M2, which I don't think they offer that with the SBA3. I don't know if they ever will. But if that's what you're going with the M2, then hell, I mean, you've got a 3-gun home defense gun, play gun, deer slug gun, or deer buckshot gun. Honestly, the M2 is just a freaking workhorse. Outside of selling the SBE3, I think the leader in sales for Benelli is typically the M2. Lately, it's been the 20 gauge, it seems, for them, but from what I've heard and read, but the M2 is a workhorse, and I don't think you'll be too upset with it if you decide to go with that one. All right. So I'm just going to get into a little comment about bismuth shot, since we all like talking about duck hunting. I bought 2 boxes of Kent's bismuth upland. They're marketing it as a pheasant load, guys, but what's the difference between a pheasant load and a duck load? There really isn't. This one is spec'd out. It's 2 3/4 ounce and quarter, number 5 shot at 1350. Sounds pretty familiar if you know the Boss stuff, right? And it is. The difference being it's in a pretty blue Kent hull, and it's not plated. It is not plated, copper-plated shot, so it is bare bismuth. They're running a higher tin content. I think they're running 6%. I've also heard 7%, so we'll say 6 to 7% tin, making it less fragile. I killed a couple. I finished a couple ducks with it with the A5 mag here. I shot absolutely terrible. I shot a whole box of this at ducks on Sunday and killed 1 bird outright and a couple cripples. I just was having a hell of a time, guys. Absolutely hell of a time. Mason can tell you, but Mason also didn't make too good of shots, and he's a competitor. So Mason there, not to throw you under the bus, but hey, screw you, buddy. We'll see you Saturday. But yeah, we did awful. We fired like 70 shots and killed 10 ducks. It was just a shit show. But yeah, so I ran through a $40 box. And that's another thing, guys. The 25-round box, which is pretty much the standard compared to the 20-round box if you buy it by the box for Boss. And Boss is running $27 a box, which runs it out at about $1.30 a shot for the same loading. If you want an ounce and quarter at $13.50 and number 5s. Let's do apples to apples here. And I might bring these back with me to Virginia so I can do some pattern tests of this versus the Boss. And this by the box on most store shelves is running for $36.99 to $40.99, and that's coming out at like $1.52 to $1.61 a shot. Now I'm a big fan of Boss, and I'll eat the $1.27.5 by the case for their shorty shell. By the case, this is like $1.45, and it's not plated. So still, if you're going to pick up a box like I did just to try, or you just need it and it's on the local store shelf, this stuff will definitely do its job. And I did fire a pattern. I didn't keep the board. I just fired a pattern here at the farm in Nebraska, and really nice, really nice pattern. Definitely capable of killing any sort of mallard or pheasant-sized target. So pretty good there. So I can say it's good. Initial impressions are good. You know, they're claiming 9.6 on their density there. I'm probably backwards to what you're looking at because I'm using the webcam on the laptop, but you know, they've got plenty of their branding here and lots of stuff to read while you're on the shitter. But bottom line is, wads look good. I picked up a couple of the wads on the hunt and looked at them. Pretty standard affair. The hulls, I'm not sure who's producing their hulls. They kind of look a lot like a Rio hull. They are a 6-star crimp, and very nice shell. I just don't think it's worth the price point they're charging. And if Boss was store shelf available, it would be the same price. I can bet you that. But this Kent stuff seems to be pretty good. And definitely, I mean, the number 5 bismuth out to 30 yards hits about the same as Deuces steel in my experience. Deuces and 3s steel. The number 4s will freaking smack the shit out of a goose with a good pattern out to 40, 45 yards. And guys been bringing big birds down out past that with full chokes with the Boss and other bismuth too. But for me, 3s and 2s are the staple for steel if you absolutely have to use it. So on Saturday, I shot steel. On Sunday, I shot bismuth. And even though the bismuth is expensive, I prefer shooting that. Less cripples, all that kind of stuff. You've heard me talk about it before on the channel. So just a little comparison there. If we're going to talk about shot shells, well, I got them in front of me. These new speed shocks that they've got out, pretty decent shell. They've actually, now this is a 1500 foot per second, ounce and an eighth, number 2. So Deuces. They've got a wax on the crimp. Very nice crimp there from Federal on that one. And they've actually got a primer sealant, if you can see it there. Really cool shell. One thing I did notice, though, that primer sealant came off I've shot probably a full dozen of these over this past week, playing around at birds and just pattern testing with the 2A5s. And I've noticed on almost all of them that primer sealant is coming up. So I feel like that could gum up a firing pin hole, but maybe that's just being me being neurotic. But didn't like that. But for a cheap fodder shell, if you have to run steel, this stuff definitely better than the old speed shock for sure. I do like them sealing it, kind of like the Remington Nitro Steels are sealed, but I don't think the Nitro Steels have a primer seal. Have you noticed that the Boss 3-inch shells don't have a full length wad? The last 3/8 or so as pellets, not in the wad. Yes. So Boss pretty much uses the same wad in each gauge, no matter the length. So the 12 gauge wad in the shorties is going to be the same between the ounce and a quarter to the 3-inch ounce and 3/8 and ounce and a half. Now the ounce and an eighth wad, because of spacing, is probably going to change unless they are putting a filler base wad in, which I don't think they are doing. They are running a Chetite hull, and I will admit that their hull choice and wad choice is focused on value and not the highest quality. They're loading a very, very high quality shell, but they are not, if you pull the components apart, they are not loading a completely sealed wad. They're using basically a lead style wad, which is what bismuth does the best with. You will notice with a lot of manufacturers with lead that they don't completely cover the shot. They will overfill the shot. You can do the same with bismuth. You do with bare shot, and I mean bare, like naked shot, not plated, run into the issue where With bismuth and lead and other soft shot technologies, they will deform the outside layer of pellets, and that will cause flyers. With the copper plating, you don't get the same streaking, and you don't get the same deformation unless you're over choking it, in which case you're going to bridge, you're going to see split pellets when you're choked too tight, etc. when it comes to bismuth. And that's plated or not. But the wads utilized are not full length. You're right. They absolutely are running them as it's almost the same powder charge in the 3 inches as the 2 3/4 inch. They're changing the weight, which changes the pressure curve. They're doing a roll finish on their star crimp. I have noticed, I will honestly comment that a knock against Boss is that their crimps are a little bit too aggressive sometimes. I've seen, if you've ever hand loaded for shot shells, you can see that down crimp after the roll, that you can see the top pellet or two in the center of that stack, in the center of that shot column. So I've seen it in the 10 gauge and the 12 gauge now. I'm going to order some 28s and see how they're doing there. And it goes from batch to batch. They're swapping out machinery here and there, and I can understand that, but I think in their rush to get the shells out that are being ordered, they're missing that on the crimps a little bit. That said, I have not had a problem with the shells with moisture, nor have I had a problem with patterns or reliability. So I don't like it, but I can't say it's not working. Your mileage may vary. Somebody else's mileage may vary. Sun was in your eyes. Yeah, me too, brother. In my eyes from behind the clouds. Love Federal Blue Box, been shooting for 10 years. Yeah. And I think, like I said, I saw that primer sealant kind of come up a little bit. The Blue Box is good. I always shot Remington Nitro Steels when I shot steel, and then I went to heavy steel because I thought it was really awesome. And then I started having problems with it after I got through half a case. And I don't know. If you shoot enough ammo, you're going to find problems. But the Blue Box has typically been a good staple for a lot of guys. And for a lot of guys, it's really affordable. And that means a lot. They have improved their shot technology with it. They've made basic steel shot loads with the Blue Box about as good as you can make them. And that's a good thing. I try not to shoot steel anymore because I bought so much Boss, and I also just really like how it hammers ducks. But once again, it's that discussion about if that's what you like and that's what you're choosing, I think that's what you should use. The most important thing is you're having a good time and you're being moral, and you're adhering to your own ethics as well as the common ethics about ethical shots and taking care of your game and eating it and all that stuff. So yeah, it's that's the important thing. The minutia and the arguments we have about gear and this, that, it's not really what matters. Pellets bulge a little out of the sides, especially when they are where the shot isn't in the cup. That can happen if they overroll that shell. Yes. I think that Boss's product is going to improve over time. It's obviously doing the right thing because they're having extreme success. I mean, I've obviously am a diehard Boss guy, but they're going to get better. I really think if they can work out just a few of the kinks and get to the point where their consistency is from box to box, case to case, is like this Kent load. And let's be fair, Kent's been doing this a whole hell of a lot longer than Boss has. But at the same time, their finished shell is a nice freaking looking shell, and it freaking works. So now they do have lower quality products, and I personally have bought they had back when I was a kid, like 14 or 15, they had this really cheap steel load that was in a red hull. I don't know if it was a Chetty or not, but it was in a red hull, and I bought like half a case because it was super freaking cheap. It was like $7 a box. And I was like, oh, ounce and quarter twos at $1,400. That's what I shoot. I'll go, Mom, help me order this. And, ordered it. And I couldn't get through. Granted, it was with my Stoker, but I couldn't get through freaking half a box without a jam or a split hull or a blown pattern or a blooper. It was just bad. I mean, I ended up throwing shells away. And that ruined my taste for Kent for a long time. But their higher end products are definitely good. And they seem to have fixed a lot of stuff. I've heard good things about their Fast Steel 2.0. So it does work, and they're a good product. Let's see. I tried to buy some 10 gauge, but they ran out almost right away. Almost recommended that they make a 1 3/4 ounce bismuth 10 gauge load. You really need 2 and so it's not 2 1/8, it's 2 1/16, but close enough. What's a 16th between friends, right? But so having talked to Brandon Surecki personally over the phone, him confirming my pre-orders and describing to me the change they were making. When they initially announced the 10 gauge load would be happening this year in January, they advertise it as an 1 3/4 of bismuth, which is a fairly healthy stack. Now, the thing about that is it does require you to run a slightly different powder stack, a slightly different wad stack compared to what Boss has elected to do. Now, the 1 3/4, I think what happened is they were supposed to get their 10 gauge loads before March, or not their loads, but they're supposed to get their equipment before March, and Boss was supposed to get their components before the middle of the year. Well, because of the COOF, obviously the whole world decided to have a panic attack, and this it didn't happen. So they were well behind, and when they finally got it figured out, he was running out of time, and he knew that everybody who had pre-ordered wanted that shit before September 1 because of early goose season. And hell, I mean, he said at one point, he was like, man, for such a small market, you 10 gauge guys sure make a lot of noise. Kind of a pun there, but yeah, it was an enormous success for them. They made every single shell they could with the components they bought, and they sent every single shell out the door. I will admit, between my father and I, we soaked up about 3 cases worth of 3 or 4 cases worth of that product. So sorry if you missed out because of us. But I was pre-ordering since they released it in late June, and according to Brandon, the reason they changed from 1 3/4 to 2 1/16, he says, he said, and this is a paraphrase of his quote, but over the phone to me, he said that we decided I decided if I'm going to make a 10 gauge load, I'm going to make a freaking 10 gauge load, and you guys are going to love it. And his whole focus was on the pellet count for those number 1 pellets he'd been working on, which is outstanding with 2 1/16 ounce. Now you can buy the environmental product, the heavy bismuth 10 gauge load at 1 3/4 ounce. Personally, I think that 1.5 ounces of bismuth is a perfect late season duck load. I think 1 3/4 ounce is a nice mid-season mixed bag. I'm going to run a modified. There might be some ducks, but I'm probably shooting 40-yard and in geese. And I think 2 1/16 ounce is an awesome power factor, an awesome charge weight for the 10 when you're looking at long range. Now, the pellet count is higher than a 2-ounce load of lead. It's more like a 2 1/4 ounce. So really what the Boss team has replicated is a heavy lead 2 1/4 ounce goose load of yesteryear. As far as pellet count and pattern density goes, now ballistics, obviously those old loads were that heavy because they were running like number 2 lead, and you need a heavy charge to get the pellet count that you need for the density. The number 4s is ridiculous. Honestly, the number 4s is going to Swiss cheese a bird if you choke it full inside of 50 yards. And the 2s and 1s are just absolutely brutal. So I really love it. I love the way that they were hitting geese when I did hit geese with them this season. I've shot 20 of them. They were great. We'll probably see the 10s restock in the spring, late spring, midsummer next year. I don't think it's a priority for them. It's probably going to be a once-a-year run. But seeing how most guys are not going to run their 10 all season on everything, get your shells next year, buy a case, be done with it. You probably won't shoot them all. It's like $225 for 100 shells, so they're not cheap at all. And I'm not going to act like they are, but they're for non-tox shit. Unless you're going to run tungsten, they're about as great as you're going to get in a 10 gauge. So yeah, I wish they had kept running with them. I wish they had the time to keep producing the 10 gauge load throughout the season. Hell, I'd probably be still buying them, and I don't need them. But I'm definitely, as we get towards January, I'm going to be bringing the 10 out in November to Nebraska. But as we get into January, I'm going to be using that thing a lot more on passing ducks on the river, as well as starting to pummel some geese with it. And I'm really looking forward to that too. But the number twos, I'll just last comment on the 10 gauge bismuth load by Boss is that I had one goose at 45 yards, and you see that in the 10 gauge Boss shot shells Thor's hammer video. There's a group of 3 birds that fall out of the sky after I shoot, and the bird that I shot, when I picked him up, I kind of set him aside. I wanted to see what those pellets did. And I should have gotten pictures. So just take this with a grain of salt because it's my memory and what I was looking at. But when I was breasting that bird out and really taking a look at him, there wasn't a pellet in him. It was entrance wound, exit wound. And he had not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 7 freaking hits in him from that improved modified pattern at 45 yards. He had 7 hits, like 4 of them were vital. I mean, it just blew through him. His opposite side wing joint was just not popped, not off, not broken, but just like disintegrated. The wing could just spin. It was gratuitous violence, and man, that is exactly what I'm looking for when I shoot a 10. So, hey, the shells work, right? Let's see. Fiocchi's been my go-to for years now. Really like them. I love Fiocchi too. My evaluation, they're fast. Well, it's not fast steel. It's some other sort of. Is it Max Steel? Steel Max, that's what it is. Their Steel Max load, really good. I loved running that load on geese. I used one of their Golden Goose loads actually in a 3.5-inch 12. It was an 1 ounce and 5/8 at 1430. So you cannot buy an 1 ounce and 5/8 10 gauge load. You can make it, but you can't buy it. You can't buy that weight in a 10 and get that speed. They usually advertise at 1350 or 1325, and you usually get like 1300 even. But that shell had a total of like, I think 75 pellets in it or something. Pattern density was not good, but when I was patterning it, I was shooting like just an old decoy at 75 yards to see what it would do, and it was smacking that decoy around with a couple pellets each time. So I took it out in the snow goose field, missed some shots. When I finally landed a shot on a bird, it was at 50. I walked it off to pick it up. It was a left to right snow goose shot, and I shot that bird at about 50, 55 yards. And I mean, it was like poof. It was like when you hit a dove at 20 yards with a number 8 load, just feathers everywhere. I think when I butchered him, I had it like, I didn't have anywhere near 10 pellets in him, but they made a god awful mess of his vitals. I'll tell you that. So I like the Steel Max. I like the Golden Goose. Good loads by Fiocchi. They also have one more steel load. They run like the 1 ounce and 1/5. That's pretty decent too. Works well. I like the number 3 shot size in steel. If I'm going to have to use steel, I like number 3s until late season, where I'll switch to 1s and BB. 1s for ducks, and then BB, of course, for geese. Avid, if I had to load my own bismuth in the 10, but it's cheaper to buy than reload. It really is. Isn't that a sad fact? You'd think if you got hulls and wads laying around, you can grab some bismuth and load it. Frickin' Kent, with the 12, you can load bismuth cheap. You can load cheaper than Kent, but you can't load it quite as cheap as Boss. In the 10, you can't load it anywhere near as cheap as any manufacturer, except for Back Ridge Ammunition. I was going to contact them for some samples of their 10 gauge, but looking at their price points and it being bismuth and bare bismuth and what they were doing with it, I just didn't see the value in it. But if people really want to see those, I'll put them together and see if I can get some from them, or just buy a box and try them out. I load most of my 10 gauge loads with 1 5/8 steel. Yeah, it's 1 5/8 steel is a good load, especially because with a hand load, you can push it a lot faster, and steel needs that speed. The BB, triple B, and T will kill a goose at a start velocity of 1350. No doubt about it. And there's guys that make ridiculous shots with those steel pellets. I mean, 75-yard shots down in geese. Is it something you should or can do every day? Probably not. But I mean, you can run an improved modify or a full with those loads, or the terror choke tube like we talked about before, by all accounts, and just get amazing patterns and beat the living hell out of some birds. So 1 ounce and 5/8 with steel. Honestly, if I was going to hand load the steel for the 10, that is what I would go with, and I'd probably try and push that shit at 1450 or 1500. BPI had some special steel recipes at one point, and they stopped publishing them for some reason. I think it's liability because their pressures and loads were exceeding what Sammy spec was on the 10. And maybe they got a letter or something from Sammy, or who knows what they ended up doing. And maybe a lawyer got a little upset or concerned, or they got a report of somebody putting in an older gun and it popping a barrel or blowing a choke out or bulging. Who knows? You can't control hand loaders, but I will say when you look on the forums, you find some of those old screenshots or pictures or just reports of what a BPI load was, which is part of how I found my 10 gauge lead load, my 2.5 ounce load, was searching the forums for some starting points and go from there. But BPI used to put out some super fast 10 gauge loads that the Super Mag 12 gauge just can't really get to with weight and speed. You'll pay for it a little bit at the shoulder, that's for sure, without having a 9+ pound gun, which all 10s are. But yeah, the ounce and 5/8 is a good go-to. I like the pellet count, especially in number ones and BB. My duck, if I was going to run a dedicated duck load, I'd run 1 ounce and 3/8 to 1.5 ounces of 2s or 3s in a 10. But the goose load is, I mean, give me double B and 1 ounce and 5/8 and push it fast. I'll take that for steel if I have to. Sammy spec is a joke for 10. Yeah, no, so I mean, most 10 guys become aware of this at some point when they start hand loading for their gun. Sammy spec is retarded, to put it lightly. They are so conservative, and even the older guns, I mean, guns from the freaking 30s with 3.5-inch chambers are still capable of handling loads that are tested to 14,500 PSI, much like the 12 gauge Super Mag is. And the shame of it is that the 10 gauge has the potential to go to operating pressures in excess of 15,000. I mean, you could, if you build the gun right, which 10 gauge manufacturers do, if you can build the gun right, you can operate at about 15.5K standard average and be pushing. I mean, steel loads, BPI had steel loads that were pushing 15,000 PSI, getting up there in the 14+ range. And they were reporting them at like 1675. Some hand loaders were getting through 1.25 ounce loads. They were bumping the pressures up enough because you have such a giant hull space in that 3.5 and such a good diameter. I mean, they were bumping it up to like 16.5 and getting 1,900 feet per second. Now, I don't know what the hell the patterns were going to look like at that speed, but at that sort of speed, you're still retaining enough energy at 40 yards to knock the living shit out of a goose with number 2s. So it is, your shoulder pays for it once again, unless you got a super heavy gun. But the 10 has way more potential than Sammy or any manufacturer in the US has ever given it an option to. And that's why with stuff like the Waterfowl ammunition, granted it's all lead and you're going to be using it on deer or predators or turkeys if you want to run like as big as the number 2 or the BB fine shot. But they're pushing the boundary. They're fulfilling what a 10 gauge can do with lead. Now there is the room and the capacity and stuff and the pressure capabilities. You could push a 10 gauge to something like 16 with a 3-ounce load and get like 1,200 feet per second with it. But then you're getting to the point where it's just not manageable for the size and weight of the gun. So there is diminishing returns, but the 10 is absolutely capable of much, much more than people give it credit for. And it can be much more versatile than people give it credit for. It is not a 12 or a 16 gauge or a 20 gauge. It's a 10 bore. And when you buy a 10 bore and when you plan to use a 10 bore, you have some trade-offs, but you can load short shells for it. If somebody offered short shells for it, I think a 10 gauge would be a bit more popular. It's really the lack of being able to practice with them and the lack of marketing to guys that are really looking for that power level. But then again, would as many of us who are passionate about the Mighty 10 enjoy it if it wasn't kind of that niche special thing? Probably, but maybe not. Let's see. There should be separate data for newer guns, just like reloading 4570. Right. There should be. There absolutely should be. The difficulty is a lot of guys stay away from the Mighty 10 simply because they don't want to load for it.
and it becomes a novelty or a late season only gun for them. If you were to make modern factory loads that can fulfill the full potential of the 10 bore, like the development of the 12 bore, what you would be able to do, and I think the appropriate step for this is you would make like a 4-inch 10 gauge super mag. Obviously, that invites guys to do stupid stuff with the bore diameter and throw like 3-ounce shot charges in it all the time. But it wouldn't really be a 4-inch chamber. You could do like 3 3/4 or 3 5/8 inch chamber length, and make you don't have to make a special hull, but you'd make a new special hull, and you'd bump the pressures up, and you'd get the SAMI and the international whatever that international sporting arms organization is. You'd get their approval and their book value for a couple published loads for steel, bismuth, tungsten, all that stuff. Bump the weights right on up there, bump the pressures, make it freaking a hard hitter. And then you open the door for manufacturers to make that 4-inch mag or 3 3/4 inch mag or 3 5/8 inch super mag, whatever. It's a super mag, right? It would be a super mag, just like when we went to the 3.5 inch 12, that's a super mag. But it is possible. There's just not a market there, because nowadays, even with a little bit of resurgence in the 10 gauge market, it's not more than 1%, if that. I mean, you can find ammunition online still in the last quarter of 2020, steel ammo, lead ammo for 10 gauge, for 10 gauge that has been circulating through distributors and manufacturers since the early 2000s. I have seen Winchester Supreme, which they have not made for, at least in my memory, 8 years. At least. I don't know when the last line of the 10 gauge went out, but I haven't seen Supreme shells, the steel Supreme shells, for ages. And you can buy it by the case right now. Go online. You can find Winchester Supreme by the case in 10 gauge and order. It's not a good price. I'm going to tell you that right now. It's not a good price, but you can find it and buy it. And it's just not a market that's fulfilled. It's seeing resurgence because of stuff that Warwolf is doing, because what Boss is doing. But I think even if it took off, it never would fulfill the market share that I think 10 gauge fans would hope it would. For the versatility of factory shot. But if you wanted to do what we're talking about and fulfill the potential of the 10, you'd have to super mag it, because Sammy's just not going to go with it. Now, as far as hand loaders go, hell, we can push the frickin' envelope. Who cares if we blow our frickin' hands off, right? It's our insurance policy that's got to worry about it. It's nobody else's problem. But yeah, you can take the 10 and like I got a 1,500 foot per second ounce and 3/8 and 1,450 foot per second ounce and a half bismuth load that I put together, and I'm going to test on ducks. And I just robbed shot from Boss shells, and that's too fast for bismuth almost. That's way too cooking. But I mean, put lead in there and nickel plate it, you can just shove that stuff down range so damn fast and hard. So yeah, I agree. There should be, but in practicality, it's just not going to get there. I can't see it. Maybe I'll have a business someday that I can push that envelope for the special boys like me and you, Avid, that want to have that Super Mag 10 that fulfills the potential. I'll make some ammo for us. How about that? Can't promise it anytime soon, but hang around 10 years. We'll see what happens. I'd like to do that. I'd also like to bring back the American-made double barrel shotgun. That would also be something, and make it something that's not freaking $3,000. That would also be a great thing. You're doing 1450 with them using 42 grains of steel powder and a CCI 209. What hull are you using, Avid? Are you running like Remy's or Feds, or are you going with the Ched hull? I'd like to know, because I honestly would probably, just for fun loads, to make Remington or Fed. Okay, I really like the Remington hull. The Fed hull's okay, but I got a big thing of Remington hulls to load up for my dad for his double 10, and I really like those. The roll crimp on them is beautiful, and they fold crimp much nicer. Basically the same hull space. Remington are the best. I would agree. Yeah. The Chetties are nice, fresh, but I have noticed with a hot load or with a Magnum, a real Magnum load, a big charge, you get 2 loadings out of them, and they're kaput. They're done. Plastic base wad in Remington, paper and fed. Yeah, I'm only seeing the white base, the white plastic base hulls in the Remington lately. For my limited observation, I know there was a yellow base that was supposed to be more of their like dedicated turkey load hull or something like that. But I'm also liking longevity. I mean, I'm taking, I'm once fired or twice fired 3.5 inch, and I'm cutting them down to 2 7/8. And I've got one fistful of about 5 or 6 that I've marked with a Sharpie, and they're on about their 6th or 7th short load. And so it's they're going strong. I'm just going to keep pushing them until they split. So yeah, those Remington hulls, I definitely like those the best. But the Chetties are nice for the one and done, kind of a bit cheaper. But yeah, I like that those components on that hull you're loading there. That shell, that's nice. I might replicate that myself. Just go buy a big box of Daisy BBs at the store and load them up. And it's something to do, right? It's something fun to do. But yeah, I mean, I could go on all night about 10 gauge stuff. I love it. This year on the channel has been like the year of the 10 gauge. But I need to do more stuff with the double barrel 10 gauge. I really do. I really do. 2-shot patterns are nasty. I can believe it. I can believe it. That's a big pellet. That's a high pellet count and a lot of density for a number 2 pellet, number 2 steel pellet in a 10. If you watch, I think most guys who are passionate about the 10 gauge have watched Zeke Up's videos here on YouTube. I may film with a potato, but that dude films with a freaking granite rock. He's got a stone that he's using, because holy crap, that guy's videos are just plain awful as far as quality goes. But man, he's a character, and he's got some hand loads he's played with and all sorts of stuff. I like watching him. He's kind of like that crazy uncle you might have man, he's crazy, but he's a lot of fun. So if you haven't seen him, Avid, I would definitely go check out Zeke Up. He's knocked down some stuff with triple B and BB and 2 loads out at distance. All he shoots is steel. He did get some heavy shot duck or heavy shot goose 10 gauge loads at some point he was working through, and he was beating the crap out of birds at 80 yards with that on a couple occasions. He uses a BPS stalker, a BPS 10 stalker. So he makes really far shots, uses a lot of HX6 powder. Okay, never tried it. Yeah, I don't know what his specific loads are. HX6, a decent powder for 10 gauge. He seems to favor it. I know he did blow up his gun at one point. He damaged his one because he wasn't being super safe with those loads. But yeah, definitely a fan of his content. I really want to put some more 10 gauge content up. There's just not enough of it out there. You know, there's videos here and there, but I just want to help encourage more Mighty 10 owners to get out with a camera and knock some birds down. Daniel, your mom wants an over-under. Oh yeah, thanks, Daniel. Hi. Tuned in for the first live stream. Thanks. It's good to see you. I'm glad you're here to embarrass me. But so I'm kind of out of topic, guys. I got all the time in the world though, but let's see, a grand total, a butt stomping total of 3 viewers is what it tells me. So anything else to talk about, Avid? I'm enjoying our conversation here. Maybe at some point we'll get together and shoot the shit about something more than just through the comments there. I'd love to do that. I'm going to start trying to put more and more content on this channel. But yeah, this you're not too far from it. What state are you in there, Avid? Where are you stomping around at? Eastern PA. That isn't too far at all. That really is not too far at all. You're in between current home and original home for me. I'm from upstate New York, so I know all about the winters and the migration there for sure. Old stomping grounds up along the shores of Ontario there. Probably if I came up, talked to you, I'd lose all sorts of medium accent I have and Southern stuff, and I'd start sounding like I was from up. You know, I'm from up north. You know, I'd have this going on, stuff like that. Don't you know? That's a big one up there. We start sounding like we're from Canada. We get far enough north. But yeah. Brain's running out. Probably going to end this stream here in not too long. But if anybody wants to throw a topic up, I will keep running my lips. Get this box closed before I knock it off with my elbow and make a 23 pickup a game. I think the big thing for me now, probably one of the last things I'm going to talk about here is, you know, I really am excited for this weekend. I'm sad I'm not going home to see my wife. I had to stay longer. I'm supposed to go home Wednesday, but I'm really sad I'm missing my wife, my dogs. But I'm glad I get to be here for this cold front's pushing through. I mean, the wind is howling outside right now. I'm in a bunkhouse converted to an office. Was built in the 1880s, late 1880s. So you maybe can even hear some wind pushing outside. But there is a serious storm brewing up in the Dakotas, and it's going to push the bird down. And hopefully we'll get a nice video this weekend, and hopefully this Auto 5 will do its job. I might actually have to bring both, one for close and one for far, because the full in this thing is just throwing an absolutely incredible pattern. It's just, I mean, this number 5 bismuth load, I could probably kill a turkey at 45 yards with. That tight. So, yeah, little bit too tight for 20-yard gaddies and teal. But hey, knock them in the head, right? Aim for the head. Damn thing shoots like a 70-30, 60-40 pattern, though. Really surprised me. Really was surprised at how high it shoots. I've known the A5s to usually shoot a bit more flat, more of a 50-50 pattern. But hey, every gun's unique. That's why you pattern test, right? That's why you practice. How's the migration going? Heard it's going to be a mild winter. Well, I think we've heard it's going to be a warm or a mild winter for the past decade of our life. I've gotten to the point where I really don't try to forecast or judge it. The most I'll look ahead and have optimism for is about a month out. As far as the Atlantic goes, I think you Eastern PA boys are going to do pretty well. You know, I think the snow line is probably going to stop at some point right around top of Maryland and retreat back up. I think you guys are going to see an ebb and flow this winter based on last few years. I think we're going to get a couple big storms this winter. We're due on the Atlantic coast for a couple big storms, but I think it's going to be about average. Atlantic flyway is a difficult flyway to discuss because there are absolutely birds there, and there's also a bunch of pressure. The Midwest in the Mississippi flyway get a lot of media, right? They get a lot of focus. But when you look at the population, even when you take into consideration the waterfowl hunters per capita and the average of days in the field, it doesn't compare apples to apples to the East Coast. There's not as much opportunity on the East Coast, and there's not as much it's just public land to access in a lot of places. So really what I see is just the East Coast suffers from limited opportunity and limited breeding grounds for those birds and the success. And you know, it is, yeah, you're having to travel all over the place to hunt. Yeah, the same with me. If I really want to try for a good public land hunt, I've got to drive all the way over to the Ohio Valley on the opposite side of West Virginia, or I've got to drive up into Nova or go home to New York. So I've got anywhere from a 2.5 to 9.5 hour drive I got to make to have a really good hunt. I do well on the river. I do well in the mountains because I'm out there that much. Last season, I did a lot better than the season before, having learned the area. But still, I'm not breaking 50 birds a season. I am when I combine geese in from September 1 to the end of, or not resident, but the end of late goose season in Virginia. But I'm not breaking a 50 bird number. So really, if you want to do, I recommend you get on the western part of Mississippi for a couple trips, or you head out to the Central Flyway to start getting into some real birds. It's just the East Coast. It's just so many factors are happening that it's more limiting to the hunters than it is the number of birds. I see tons of birds when I travel north on the East Coast, and they're usually locked up in areas that are inaccessible for hunters. So that it's not a bird issue, really. It's an accessibility issue. Do I hunt divers? I have not gone on an official diver hunt. The divers I end up shooting on in the areas that I go are mergansers, so they don't really count. And I only shoot those because I feed them to the dog, and I don't like that they eat all my trout. Yeah, I think public land in general is tough on the East Coast. In my experience, you've got a 9 out of 10 chance that you're going to get a no. Out here in the Midwest, you got a 9 out of 10 chance that you're going to get a yes or a maybe. There might be somebody already hunting it, but a lot of times I've gotten a yes. You can, out here in Nebraska, I gotten a yes. You can hunt that, no problem. But I got a guy going out there tomorrow or tonight. You're going to need to get with him. Here's his number. And so the West is better for that, especially if you're going to freelance it and not buy a guide. But 6 of one, half dozen of the other. You still got to put the work in, and unless you live in the prime area, it's going to be work. But that's also why we do it, right? Because it's a passion. But I think the East Coast is going to see a decent winter. We'll see what the migration brings. I think we'll get a couple of good pushes. If I'm seeing a good push, you'll probably have seen it a week before I have, or not. If not a few days before. And hopefully they hang out in an area for you so you can get a couple of good hunts in. I wish everybody the best during hunting season. I know how hard it is to go have a shit season. Makes you discouraged. No argument there. No argument there at all. Got to get away from taxes and bad politics and go to better hunting. I agree with you there. The only reason I came back to Virginia was because, family stuff. My wife wanted to be closer to her family, and big bonus was that my mother is down there, so I'm close by. But I will say that if you want a home base that's really great, I highly recommend Western Missouri, Middle Kansas, anywhere in Nebraska, anywhere in the Dakotas. Well, Dakotas, you got to deal with a pretty harsh winter a lot of times, but Front Range of Colorado is great. But once again, politics might be playing a role in what you're looking at for taxes and job availability and all that. So I love the Midwest. Love coming back here. Glad that I took a job opportunity that's going to be putting me back out here a lot more often. But, well, I think that is going to wrap it up. It's 8 o'clock my time, 9 o'clock Eastern. So I think we're going to say good night, Avid. It was good having a chat with you. I'm glad a few people could drop by. We've got somebody else who dropped in. Daryl, is Remington going out of business? Pretty much. They are selling off assets. They have filed for bankruptcy for the umpteenth time, and they are effectively out of the game. The Remington brand is not going to go away, and I don't think the Remington factories are going to go away, but their management's definitely changing, and their divisions, what Freedom Group had consolidated together and destroyed, those brands have been bought up. I'm really excited that Ruger has purchased Marlin. That's going to be awesome because they're actually going to be putting together probably some great products. Hopefully for the end of next year. I wouldn't expect them to have a really great turnaround, especially this year, with getting new products out for the company and seeing how they just won the bid to acquire that asset not even a month ago, if I remember correctly. So, yeah, Remington's defunct pretty much as we knew it, but that's not a bad thing. Hopefully they'll be able to revamp that brand and the brands that were consolidated by Freedom Group and Cerberus and turn it into what they deserve to be. American staples. It needs to be one of those products in every American household. Absolutely convinced of it. All right, Avid, you have a good one. Guys, I'm going to sign off. We're going to do this again. Next week, we're going to come back. We're actually going to have a podcast setting, not just an open mic kind of podcast dealio. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a beautiful evening. As always, God bless. Keep your powder dry. I'll see you next time.